Okay, now picking it back up at 18 on this paragraph 18 in this final order. I got April 19th. Since, let me see. Oh, yeah. Yeah, this Latasha Stevenson, and that's on YouTube. Her test. I mean, she's crazy. She's evil. She's crazy. And the thing is that visit, and then the one with the supervisor after that, which was a different agency. And when I did my intake with this new agency, everything was fine because I talked to her first, but after she talked to my daughter's dad, and then I went in there for my actual visit that I paid a lot of money for. I could tell her attitude had changed, but I was having a great visit with my daughter, and it's almost. I mean, it was set up. It was set up somehow. I don't know what he did, what he said, but it's like they said, okay. Halfway into the visit, tell the mother you're ending the visit, and don't tell her why, and see what she does. And what am I going to do? What if they're violating? I mean, there was no reason. We were not doing anything wrong. We weren't just engaging in any inappropriate discussions. We weren't doing anything the judge told us not to do. But on that life care agency, that first visit we had with her, and she was weird. She was really weird. In fact, she took me out. I was there visiting my daughter, and she took me out in the hall, and I'm like, what's going on? And she's like, I know what you're trying to do. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I know what you're trying to do. I've got an associate's degree in criminal justice. I know what you're trying to do. So, which makes me think, what did he put in her head? What is she talking about? And then after a few minutes, she says, well, I'm not going to end the visit, but I'm not going to do another one. And it's like she's goading me. And then when she said, I'm going to end the visit, I said, well, I don't agree to that. And my daughter, when she said she's ending the visit, my daughter said, what? We're not even talking about court, because she knew we weren't supposed to talk about court. We were doing nothing wrong. So instead of questioning why the visitation supervisor stopped the visit, and when the police came, I heard them tell the police, well, she was talking to the child about her feelings and about the child's behavior at school. And I was talking to because my daughter was having a hard time at school. And she was having a hard time with her emotions. And I was trying to encourage and support her and be positive and help her to have encouraging her to have better behavior at school. And my daughter wasn't upset. I mean, it was a great visit. I was being a mom and helping my daughter, supporting my daughter, and supporting her school because they needed support. My daughter's giving them a hard time. And there's nothing in the court order that says I can't talk to my daughter. And there was nothing in the contract I signed with the life care agency that said I couldn't talk to my daughter about her feelings. They never told me, don't talk about your daughter about how she feels. Don't talk to your daughter about her behavior at school. They never said that. So they set me up to fail, basically, by putting these restrictions on me. I had nothing. It was really weird. So I said, I'm not leaving my daughter. And then the police came and they says, well, if you don't leave, we're going to have you arrest you for trespassing. And I said, I've got a contract with them. I signed. I paid them for services. They are violating the court order. They are violating the contract. My daughter needs this time with me. She gets very little time with me. She needs this. She doesn't need to be interrupted. And I'm not gonna leave her. And I'm willing to go to the edge of the property and I'll stand on one side of the property line, and she can stand on the other side of the property line, and then that way you can't say I'm trespassing, and that'll meet everybody's needs, because my daughter will get her time with me, and I won't be trespassing, and I'll be getting the service I contracted for. Win, win, win. And the lady said, well, I'm not willing to do that. So I said, well, I'm not willing to leave my daughter. And during this visit, I paid for 2 hours. I'm not leaving my daughter until if she has to leave, y'all have to take her from me, because I will not abandon her. And that's what they did. They pulled her away from me. She was crying, but instead of saying the visitation supervisor was to blame, and I complained about her. I wrote to the company. I wrote to both of these companies. I think Camelot's not even in business anymore, and complained and said what they did, and it was wrong, and it was hurtful to my daughter. I don't think it caused her any trauma. I don't think it was traumatizing, but it was upsetting and hurtful. It hurt her. I wouldn't call it a psychological injury, but it was wrong. It was unfair. You should not treat children like that. You shouldn't treat anybody like that. So that's what happened when that was so I got arrested for trespassing. Criminal trespassing, and then when I went to court and I think that was one of the times I spent like 3 days and 3 nights in jail, because it was a Saturday morning. I've been arrested 6 times since this has been going on in the past 4 years, and I've had 2 bench trials and a jury trial. I was acquitted for what I was arrested for, and then I had other things were dismissed. They were all everything was bogus. All of these arrests were totally bogus. So, but they make me look bad. I go to juvenile court, and they're like, oh, look, the mother's, she's got this order of protection in Third Circuit Court. And, they got that judge gave a no contact order between her and her daughter, and nobody wants to know how he lied to get that, and his lawyer. And she's got these pending charges in criminal court because there's no consequences when they make these false allegations. Because I went to the DA. I said, I want to press charges for false reporting. And because he's made he's made the false allegations to DCS, and all these false criminal accusations, lying. You make a statement, you swear it, and make these allegations, and they're not true, and I can prove he's lying. So he needs to stop. They need to do something to stop him, and that's when I found out that even though making false reports is a crime, you can't. The person the false report is made to has to file the criminal complaint. So DCS would have to file the criminal complaint, or the police would have to file the criminal complaint. The person who the false allegations are made about have to hire a lawyer if they can afford one, and they have to sue in civil court. It's a civil case. It's not a criminal case, so the DA won't do anything about it. That's really sad, but that's the way it is. And the Latasha Stevenson from Camelot, that was at the library. And they couldn't arrest me. The police couldn't arrest me at the library because that's a public place. They couldn't say you're trespassing. And the last 30 minutes, I sat in the vestibule with my daughter and played my ukulele and sang. And she was but when we were in the library, I said we're going to have to leave out of here because we can't make a scene, because if we make a scene in the library, they're liable to ban me, and I don't want to get banned because the library is one of my favorite places in the world. So we went to the vestibule, and the police came. There's like eight. It was full of place, and this Latasha Stevenson. I still don't understand why. What reason did she give for ending the visit? Because my daughter had just finished reading a book to me, and she wanted to read the book. She was the one who was in control of this visit. And I gave my testimony about that. I think those hearings were in, it was last spring. So they're on YouTube. So I told my story and got all the truth in. And Latasha Stevenson got her lies in. And, she was saying, like, I had gotten up in her face. How close did she? Oh, she was right up in my face. And then I go and get the surveillance video from the library, which, and this was, I never got in her face. I never got anywhere like in her personal space. And you can tell there's the tiles, the floor tiles, they're like 18-inch floor tiles. You could see I was not in her face. And I was not being hostile and aggressive. I mean, I was arguing with her. She said, you can't leave the library. If you leave the library, you'll be guilty of kidnapping. And I'm like, how can I be kidnapping my daughter when her father is right here with me? And because she called the father. And so he was kind of following us around. And I asked my daughter, I said, I don't think she's right. Do you want to go outside or do you want to stay in here? And she says, well, it might be cold outside. Let's stay in. So we sat on the floor in the vestibule and I played my ukulele and sang to her. And at some point, I went to the father. I think it was before the police came. And because you're not supposed to have this kind of interference in your parenting relationship if you've not harmed your child. So, and then remember, I haven't talked to my daughter. This was not. I didn't coach her and tell her what to say, and everybody was right there. The vestibule's not that big, and so I walked within earshot of Delara's dad. I mean, I wasn't any closer to him than he'd gotten to me, even though we got this order of protection. We're supposed to stay away from each other. I asked Delara in a loud voice, Delara, to where the visitation supervisor could hear, have I ever harmed you? And she said no. And I said, has your father ever harmed you? And I thought she was going to say no. And then I was going to say, and that's why none of these strangers need to be telling either one of us what to do. But I said, has your father ever harmed you? And she hesitated. And her answer to that question was, sometimes I'm grumpy at school because I can't sleep, because I'm sad and I'm worried and I miss you. And I said, have you ever told your father that? And she said, a lot of times. And I said, is there anything you want to tell your dad right now? And she said, like, please let me go home to my mom. And remember, we're not saying let me have exclusive custody. Let's just go back to the old schedule where she gets, I'm in her life. We have a normal, healthy mother-child relationship. That's all she wants. She only wants back what was taken from her, and her dad had everything he personally wanted. The time, he's not spending more time one-on-one with her. He's having other people fill the gap where I had been standing. So when she said that, and we're in the vestibule, you can see I never was aggressive with anybody. The most thing I said was like, who says I'd be kidnapping my child? Who says we have to, as long as you're with me? Because I had been with other visitation supervisors, we didn't stay put in one spot. I was never told that that was a restriction. You can't move around. Because we had been, with the other visitation supervisors, we'd gone on walks, we'd gone to a restaurant. So when all of a sudden she says, well, you can't leave this area, that's a new one on me. And me kidnapping my daughter when her dad's right here with me, how can I be, that's not kidnapping. How could that be kidnapping? I mean, and I was baffled by these things she was saying, but I wasn't aggressive with her. I was assertive, and I don't know. I didn't think I was being defensive. So I've said, well, maybe I could have come across as abrasive, but these are people coming between me and my daughter when we've already been through hell. We went through a whole year, no contact. How do you think that made her feel? And that's when she started having these, I'm going to talk about the emotional problems, but that Latasha Stevenson was lying. And one thing that she said, this comes up later in here, is like, she made the claim, and I think she put this in her case notes too, that the child was trying to protect her mother. And that's just something she said because it sounds good. It sounds like, oh, there's some weird psychological reversal, or there's something screwy about this parent-child relationship because this parent, this child is trying to protect the mother when it should be the other way around. There's nothing in the surveillance video. My daughter was never trying to protect me. And I told her when we left, we were walking out of the library and went downstairs, and I asked her, I said, do you want to leave? And she said no. And I said, well, just hold on to me, and if somebody comes to grab you, they might just know somebody might grab you. And I'm not going to do a tug of war with her. If the police grabbed her, I was not going to pull her back, but I just said, you just hold on to me, because I wasn't going to hold her. And but I did have my arm around her. But, and she's very affectionate, and it's not unusual. I mean, she holds on to me. I mean, she's had so little contact. She's had hours of contact out of years. And her dad's not affectionate and really demonstrative. I mean, he's good. I'm not holding that against him. That's one thing I told the judge. I said, we have different strengths, and my daughter needs both of us to get all of her needs met. And they were met very well. We were both in her life to the maximum, and she's not getting her needs met now, and that's why she's having problems. But so anyway, she is very affectionate, and but she's not trying to protect me. She didn't ever. But that allegation was made in bad faith by this hostile. I mean, she was really, I call her Devil Woman, Latasha Stevenson from Camelot. Okay, and that was the first time she'd met us. But it was set up. She knew she was going to make a scene. And one of the comments she made during the hearing indicated that she didn't want to have to deal with either me or the father. She just, because he was going around sending these emails and complaining about everything. So she wanted to be done with both of us. And one of the comments she made indicated that. It wasn't just me. It was both of us she didn't like. So, where were we? Okay. And the law says you're not supposed to impose supervision during visitation unless there's proof to show that the child will be harmed or endangered if the visitations are not supervised. So that's what the law says. And nobody has ever proven. And most of these people, unless I don't know. I don't know what I can't remember if Latasha's. I mean, I remember Latasha says, "Oh yeah, we won't let anybody else supervise. I'm afraid for my team's safety." None of the visitation supervisors ever indicated they were afraid of me or felt like I was going to harm them in any way. I mean, they were all nice, except her. Okay. Since mother began her visits, the child began having extreme behavior issues. And the problem I have with this is this is the allegation the father has made. The father is saying the child was doing so well when she was no contact with her mom. When the mother was cut out of the child's life 100%, the child was doing so well. And he made that claim the last day of the order of protection was done June 15, 2015. The last day of our trial was August 28th, 2015. In that 2.5 month interim, the guardian ad litem never met with my daughter, never talked to the school. And the CASA, see, we had a CASA, and CASAs are supposed to be for abuse or neglect cases. The reason, and I've got, the referral, why was a CASA appointed? The reasons were homeschooling and spanking. Neither one of those is abuse or neglect. But they appointed a CASA anyway, because that was one more person to get on their side and gang up on me. And they ganged up on me. And this CASA, this was like her first case, and I don't think she would have stood up against anybody, because she had the father talking about how horrible I was, the father's lawyer, the guardian ad litem, who was mad at me because I stand up for, I question abuse of authority, and they don't like that, but I'd rather challenge abuse and get retaliated against than not challenge it and be abused and set my family up and other people up to be abused. I can't enable abuse. I can't do it. I used to have a really serious codependency problem, and I've been in abusive relationships, and I know how unhealthy it is and sick it is, and it took me a long time to get healthy, and I'm going to stay healthy. So I'm not going to enable anybody's abuse. I'm just not going to do it. I'm not. So if you're mistreating me or my child or anybody I see and I have the opportunity, I'm going to tell you you're wrong. So, and this guardian ad litem, Charlene Pye Mack, is a control freak. I've heard her tell somebody, I'm such a control freak. She is. She admitted herself. She's a control freak. She put that label on her, and I agree 100%. It fits. She's a control freak. And my daughter's best interest is the least of her concerns. If she was a good guardian ad litem, and if that CASA, the rules of the CASA, you're supposed to meet when you've got a child, that CASA is supposed to meet with that child at least, in person, face-to-face, at least every 30 days. That's in their rules and guidelines. But in that 2.5 months, after knowing I was abruptly and completely cut out of my daughter's life, 6.5-year-old daughter's life, when she knew how, we were attached to each other. I was her primary caregiver. My daughter was having, daily contact with me. To go to zero contact, and then doesn't check with the child, doesn't check with the school, comes to court, and everybody's telling the judge, oh, the child is flourishing without the mother in her life. That's what they said. And then the CASA's like, well, how do you know that? Well, that's what the father said. Father wouldn't lie about something like that. He wouldn't, would he? I wish she had known how he'd lied to get that order of protection. But it didn't matter. She wasn't going to stand up against the lawyer and the guardian ad litem. And one of these days, I would like to track her down and show her what happened to my daughter because of her input and not doing her job, because it's really bad what she did. I would be devastated if I had done something to have the kind of adverse effect, even if I just contributed a little bit. I would be devastated if I had done something that had such an adverse effect on an innocent child's life as that CASA did. And she's a volunteer, so she wasn't making money off this. She was just pretending to help, or maybe, maybe it makes them feel good, feel like they're helping, but it was really, really bad. But she wasn't doing her job. If she was doing her job, she would have gone and talked to my daughter and the school. Or, I don't know if she had talked to the school, but she was supposed to have met with my daughter at least 2 times. At least 3 times, because I think she only met with my daughter in April. And the order of protection was in June. So between whenever the last time she'd seen my daughter and this last day of trial, she should have seen my daughter 3 times, and she saw her 0 times. So that's bad. Okay, so it says, since the mother began her visits. Okay. Oh, and in her first grade year, when that order of protection was in place, I wasn't in her life at all. And her dad says, oh, she was doing so well. She got perfect attendance. She also had like 18 or 19 tardies. And I went to the school on parent-teacher conference day. I can't remember if it was in October or November of 2015. And I've got a recording of the conference. And I asked her about August, because my daughter was having all these problems. She's telling me all these problems my daughter was having. And I asked how she had been at the first of the year, and she said it was really rough. And I said, really? Well, everybody's saying in court how everything was, wonderful, and she didn't have any problems in August. And she says, well, that's not true. She did have a lot of problems, and it wasn't fine. So and of course that my recording isn't admissible. Wait, is it admissible? I don't know. I didn't take the recording to court. I mean, it's enough that I can play it for anybody who doubts me. I didn't subpoena that teacher. And for one thing, they quashed subpoenas. It's like, oh, this is a hardship on the school. You can't have. So I didn't make her come. But I knew the truth, and I told the guardian ad litem and the lawyers, and this is what she said. And they don't care what the truth is, especially that guardian ad litem, which is really sad. But yeah. But the reason is so they say, oh, she was doing great without the mother in her life. And then as soon as she starts to see her mother again, she starts having problems. And I know that's not true. And everybody knows that's not true, because I was cut out of her life June 15th. And her school teacher says she had problems from the very beginning of the school year. She was seeing a counselor. I think she started seeing Carrie Loy in maybe September. And what's my daughter telling the counselor? She's telling the counselor she's sad. She's worried about her mom. She's mad at her dad for keeping her from seeing her mom. She's afraid. And I'm talking to I'm checking in with the counselor. How did it go? And what's she saying? And then we've got the case notes too. She's afraid her dad's put her mom in jail. She's having behavior problems at school. She's having behavior problems at home with her dad. They're not getting any better during the school year. So Carrie Loy, there's problems all through the school year. And Carrie Loy moved to California, and we were going to do a telephonic testimony, but I don't know if we ran out of time. But Cynthia Cheatham we've got the case notes. She's got the case notes. They've been properly admitted into evidence. And the judge promised she would read them. And, so it's in the record. And, but, says, so that's when the extreme behavior issues started. And, the assistant principal, okay, so all through kindergarten, supposedly she was doing so fine at school, but I knew she wasn't, because I was was in touch with the counselor, and I was in touch with I had talked to the teacher and the other teachers. I had emails from, because she switched teachers in the middle of the year, and then Dolores' behavior got it was. Carrie Lloyd noted that, it seems like she's had a spike in her, it seems like losing her teacher, having that transition triggered the feelings of the loss of her mother. That's in the case notes. So when the assistant, okay, so second grade, my daughter, I had supervised visits in August of 2016. That was the last month we had supervised visits, because I thought that was the last month we had to have supervised visits. And the visitation supervisor said, mother's appropriate, we don't need to have any more supervised visits. And so I went to the school and I told my daughter, I said, yeah, we're done with the supervised visits. And I'm supposed to start seeing you 8 hours a week according to this order, but I can also come have lunch with you during the week, because that's one of the non-custodial parents' rights that don't, that doesn't count against your, your parenting time. If I only saw her every other weekend, I could still have lunch at school with her, and I could still see her at her school functions like any parent. Those are that's like the parental Bill of Rights. So I told her that. I'm like, the worst is over, and we're going to start getting our life back. And so she goes home and tells her dad, and we had a nice, pleasant visit. And I met some of her friends, and just during lunch. And then there's people all around us. It's not like I'm doing anything bad, or saying anything bad. And so she goes home and tells her dad. And then the next day, I was like in the neighborhood, and I go to try to have lunch with her again. And I saw her teacher, and she says, "Oh, Dolores not here today. She wasn't feeling well. We got an email from her dad." And I'm like, okay, that's too bad. And then the next day, I find out I can't go to school for lunch anymore, because I wasn't sure why. I got all this written down. I've forgotten exactly why. But what the father did was he went and got a restraining order, ex parte restraining order, and claimed that I was supposed to stay on supervised visits until I went to court. There was nothing in the court order. Anybody can go there and read the October 2015 court order that we were working from in September 2016. See it, you read it and see if it says to you that after the visitation supervisor from a licensed agency or whatever determines I'm ready for unsupervised time, you see if there's anything in that order that indicates to you I have to go to court again and confirm with the judge that I've successfully completed the visitation. Even though, I was told it was successful, the father was told it was successful. So that's how I interpreted it, and that's how the appeals court interpreted it. I'm ready for my unsupervised time. But then he says no, and then he files a motion, and then he goes to the judge, and the judge says, oh, well, I intended for them to have to come to court and file something to say that the visitation, but it wasn't in the order. So why would we think that? I mean, you speak through your orders, not through your intentions. So, so she's holding that against me. We're going to get to that, where she's holding that against me. And my lawyers, they pointed out to the judge, the appeals court read it the same way we did, so you shouldn't be holding that against the mother. Because if the appeals court didn't read it the way you intended it to come across, then why would you hold it against the mother? And at the other way I can prove that, I forgot to tell you. Okay, so they stopped me from having lunch with her. And like the day after she went back to school, and I think she got in a big confrontation with her dad, because her dad says, your mother's not supposed to be having lunch with, or something like that. But because my visit with my daughter was good, and it was happy, and I walked her down the hall, we were holding hands. It was a good, happy visit. And but he's trying to say I upset her or did something, and I didn't. He's the one that gets upset if she has contact with me, not her. But so Delara was enraged and was slinging chairs around in her classroom and knocked a couple of desks over. And one of them fell. Her teacher sent me this email. One of them landed on the teacher's foot, and it crushed her. Was it her foot? Was it her toe? It was like the joint between her foot and her toe. Crushed it, and she ended up having to have surgery and stuff. And that was outrageous because I was getting all these stories about her behavior. I wasn't getting the stories yet, but that was really over the top. I mean, I knew she was. And Judy Mullins, that visitation supervisor, there was an incident in the case notes where she went to the children's playroom. Her dad was playing soccer, and he asked her to drop her off at this drop-in daycare center, and so he could pick her up, finish the game, pick her up from there. And she didn't normally do that, but she did it to help him out. And then on the way there, my daughter was acting out in the car. And then when we get to children's playroom, my daughter just goes nuts and she's hitting. And then her dad actually comes and while Judy Mullins is still there at the children's playroom, and then Judy Mullins is really concerned about how Delara is acting. And this is in her, in her testimony and stuff, Judy Mullins during the trial. And Delara's dad says, "Oh, she gets this way sometimes." And then I asked the children's playroom director, I hear, has she been acting this way? Why do you tolerate that? Why don't you kick her out? If she's acting that way, and I don't want her acting that way, and I don't want people acting like it's okay for her to act that way. And the director of the children's playroom told me that she wasn't aware of serious stuff like that, but she looked through the file and there had been an incident in March. And she said, I did not realize that this had happened in March. I would have done something. And so that was March. During the time, I'd been like 10 months no contact with Delara, and there was this big incident at the children's playroom. And we use the children's playroom even when I, for just little times here or there when I dropped her off there before he could pick her up, or we use the drop-in, short little things. So he said there was never problems with the children's playroom until after my supervised visit starts. But somewhere in the records, which I didn't subpoena, it's hard to subpoena everything. But I swear, that's what she told me. She said, there's something happened in March. I don't know what it was. And then after sometime after this, I knew she was having trouble she almost got kicked out of one of the summer camps. They had to call the parent because she was acting bad. And and she did eventually get kicked out of the children's playroom. It was for running out. They couldn't keep her safe. I mean, if you're running out of the building and they have to call the police to get you and bring you back in, that's scary. So she got kicked out of that, and she got kicked out of a winter program. But that was after we'd started our supervised visit. So he's saying, oh, the child was so perfect before she started seeing her mother, and since she's seeing her mother, and that's what she said, since mother began her visits, because that's exactly what the father said. Since mother began her visits, the child began having extreme behavior issues. But according to the school, when I went after she flipped the desk over, and I went and talked to the assistant principal, and I said, I'm really concerned about her behavior. And the assistant principal said, this is exactly what she said. She said, these behaviors aren't new. She was doing this last year, which was the year of no contact with me. And when she came to court to talk about it, she talked specifically about how in first grade, I think she wasn't on the radar till January of 2017. after Delara had had no contact with me for like 6 or 7 months. That absolutely disproves his allegation that she did not have any severe... Oh, she did fine in first grade. And even if he didn't know how bad things were in first grade, and I don't know how he couldn't have known. And he was, during that time, he was telling Carrie Loy, her counselor, about the problems he had with her. And she was having them at school too, because they give you colors like on your behavior. And one thing that the and I've been having emails with the teacher, so I knew she was having. I didn't know about the violence as much as the emotional, the stuff like that she'd never done before, like her the teacher I had that she had for the first half of the year that I had the conference with. She said at least once a week, Delara will just come in and she'll be so upset. She'll just stand against the wall and you can't engage her, and she just stands there against the wall, won't talk to anybody, won't do anything. And she just does that for and I'm like, well, how long does she do that? And she says, well, at 8, because class starts at 8 o'clock. And she's like, well, at 8:30, they go to specials. And like music or art or whatever. And she says, by the time she comes back from specials, she's usually okay. That's disturbing behavior to me. Why would a child come in so upset they just stand against the wall for 30 minutes or more? Because I don't know. I didn't talk to the specials teachers to see how long did she stay upset. And that really hurt me to hear that. And so and with those 18 or 19 tardies, she must have been giving her dad fits, absolute fits, and he can't handle her. So, but he got her to school. Maybe he got her tardy, but he got her there every day, and but that's the truth. That's the truth. And another way where I'll get that later. Okay. Furthermore, according to both Dr. Berryman, who's the counselor she's been seeing since October of 2017. She's been seeing Dr. Berryman for over a year now. Not 2017. 2016, I think she started. October 2016, I think she started seeing Dr. Berryman, who's a psychologist. According to both Dr. Berryman and several of her counselors and teachers from school, the child is having extreme behavior issues. Yes, we know that. Her behaviors include having tantrums, kicking and hitting other students. Her school behavior has not improved, and she has made minimal progress in counseling. Okay, so that's true. But why would you expect, if she's having these because she's had her relationship with her mother pretty much eliminated, the close and continuing relationship is gone. We still have that bond, and she still needs me, and she knows she needs me, and says she needs me, and she, but as far as the opportunity to interact with each other, we don't have that. I have more interactions with the kids next door than my own daughter. So why would you expect her behavior to improve when she's not getting her needs met? Because her mother is not in her life in a significant way, and she's grieving the loss of her mother and that deprivation. Why would you expect her behavior to be better? And also, during the court trial, after, I asked when the assistant principal told me in September 2016, is that when she was in second grade? Yeah. 16. Yeah. When the order of protection was gone, I went to the school. And she says she was doing this last year, and I was like shocked. And I'm like, well, she's been doing this all this time? Because her attitude was like, oh yeah, she's been doing this. She did this last year. This is nothing new. And just so nonchalant about it. And I'm like, this is my daughter. My daughter was not doing things like this. I don't even recognize my daughter in some of these descriptions of her behavior. She never did anything like that. Ever. And so how do you handle it? Oh, we just, she comes to the office, and when she de-escalates, we send her back. And I'm like, so that's what you've been doing all last year? That's what you did, and she's still having these problems, and you're still doing the same thing that's not helping her? And I was really upset because and they even said, okay, so then I pushed for her. They started suspending her. She got suspended 10 days in second grade. And when they were in court, they said, yeah, if she was in any other school, this is where she needs to be, because we're used to handling emotionally disturbed kids, and we know all these CPI holds, and we don't care if we get scratched, bitten, and bruised. We know how to handle this. But they also said they cannot meet her educational needs as a gifted child because of her behavior is so bad. And I bet if you checked her today, she would not be academically advanced. She's still intellectually, you'll always be intellectually gifted, but by the criteria, it's like, are you still academically? She's liable to be a lot of kids who are gifted and academically advanced when they're in third grade. If they start ahead and they get their needs met and they're adequately challenged, they'll stay ahead. But if they don't get their needs met, they just level off, and then they lose interest. They don't have the opportunity to be doing and the things they need to do, and then they just kind of coast, because they never had to study before. So, and that's one thing my daughter says, I don't study. My dad doesn't make me study. And without those good study skills and good habits, you're really going to be in trouble when you get out of elementary school and into high school. And that's one reason a lot of really smart people drop out, because they don't like it. It's like they don't want to have to study stuff that they're not interested in, and it's a chore, or and they're having to work for a grade, and it's like a blow to their ego, and it's just a lot of stuff. And I tried to tell them, because I've got two other gifted kids. I was gifted. My mom didn't tell me until I was 40. I'm like, well, why didn't you tell me that? And because I guess they used to think that you get a big head or something. But she said, well, I just didn't see how it would help anything. But I had opportunities. I found ways to keep myself stimulated and engaged. But I did have I did run into some trouble when things started getting challenging, and I had to work and do stuff I didn't really want to, so I knew, and that's very common. But the schools, they can't, they said, because she's spending so much time in the office, the counselor and the teachers, sometimes she's in the office for several hours every day of the week, and it varies. But my daughter's dad was trying to say, oh, she'll go see her mom and then she acts out. And that's not true, because we got a behavior chart. I checked, what color she got for what day for behavior. And then I put them all out on a calendar. And then I marked the days she saw me. There was no correlation. And so I didn't go in there saying that she's better when she sees me. I just went in there and proved nobody could say seeing me makes her worse. They couldn't say seeing me makes her better either. But like I said, why would you expect it to when she's got such little contact with me? She's not getting her needs met. So, but in 2014, she was assessed by for the giftedness, and in the first trial, they were questioning her. What about her social skills? There were zero concerns. The school psychologist who assessed her over 2 days in June 2014, before the court had done anything to interfere in our lives. She was intellectually gifted, academically advanced, presented as very mature, very cooperative, and they had got records, sent to collect information from the preschool Delara went to 2 days a week. And so all this information gets put into the file. So there were no concerns about her behavior or her emotional social emotional condition, there were no concerns. And the judge, the school psychologist, they kept asking her about it, and she's like, we didn't do any further assessments because we had no reason to. We had, from the information we had, there was no reason to like really delve into her psyche, and because there were no concerns. And you'd think that a psychologist seeing a child over 2 days and getting information from the school that this child had been going to for 3.5 years. I never once, in 3.5 years, and I went to conferences twice a year. I never once had a complaint about Delara's behavior. And she's a little immature, but within the range of normal. And I'll admit that she's a little immature. Well, she's really immature now because I think this has really stunted her development since they cut me out of her life. But she was well within the range of normal. And I had the first trial, I had my brother came and testified. 2 of the Sunday school teachers testified. They didn't have any. There was nothing out of the range of normal with her. She's just pretty typical, and didn't have any trouble with her. Didn't have any trouble with her in Bible class, and so there was zero evidence that she had any social emotional problems, disturbances, behavior issues before court got involved. And then, so after in second grade, when I was back in her life a little bit, and she's having these problems at school, after she'd been suspended several times, she had a 3-day suspension for biting a paraprofessional that was in the classroom. And it wasn't a bad bite. It was just like, it was like she had old lady skin, and because I saw a picture of it, and it was just like it just kind of like made a little cut or a little tear. It was little. It wasn't like teeth marks, which tells me she wasn't really trying to injure the woman. She was just, but it was not appropriate at all, and I was very upset when I heard about it. And I was upset about hearing her scratching people bloody and all this stuff, but and upset about her breaking her teacher's foot. And then a couple of weeks later, she goes and gets mad at her teacher and goes and stomps on that broken foot. And then a few months later, she tries to flip another desk over on the teacher's foot. And she likes that teacher. So my daughter's extremely disturbed. And I said, when she bit that Parapro, I'm like, well, what's a Parapro? And why is there a Parapro in the room? And it was there just for this other child. And I said, well, get what? Can you get my daughter a Parapro to give her some support during the day and keep her from acting out and like diffuse a situation before somebody's hurt? And so I looked into getting her assessed and special ed stuff, and they did another psychological assessment, and they found that they classified her as meeting the criteria for emotionally disturbed. She was very high on a scale for anxiety. As a child, never had a worry in the world. She was the most upbeat, positive child you ever could have met before court. So now she's off the scale almost. Anxiety, depression, can't sleep, misses her mom. And in this report, it says they quoted her, "Even when I'm good, I can't see my mom." So her distress, she's very clearly articulating her distress as related to being cut off from her mom. Anxiety, depression, behavior problems. I mean, she's grieving. And grieving kids. I've got a friend whose husband died, and so she told me, she said, yeah, the hospice people tell you all about how kids act out when they're grieving, and your daughter's grieving the loss of you. And I'm like, yeah, it makes sense. So my daughter, because I pushed for this, I'm like, why didn't her father, he's the one that's supposed to be making the educational decisions, why didn't he try to get some interventions for my daughter? Why didn't the school ask for them? Instead of just de-escalating and sending her back to the room. So they do this big assessment. last year, and they come to court and they explained all of it, and it's entered into evidence, and it very clearly connects her distress to being cut off from me. And and I was really upset when I saw this. It says she's thought about killing herself, but she wouldn't do it. 8 years old, thinks about killing herself because she's so miserable, but she wouldn't do it. And so that got entered into evidence. So yeah, so they okay. So she hasn't really gotten better since she hasn't been able to have her mother in her life in a normal mother-child relationship. And they kind of act like, well, the child should be, if you're important, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I've got a right to a relationship with my daughter. She's got a right to a relationship with her mother. It's constitutionally protected. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if she doesn't even like me. Or, you can't deprive me and her of our opportunity to have this relationship. But especially when she's crying out for her mom for years, it's very clear to any objective person would see that. I'm going to stop this. I didn't make very much progress, but I'm going to stop this again after that whole hour. But I do want to get everything in here because this is going to be a big deal.